Welcome back to the Recruits Podcast. I am your host, Jonathan Cottone, or Devin Levi, whatever you want to call me, that's fine. Joined here by Grant McCagg. How are you on this afternoon on the draft day?
Christmas Day for all us draftniks.
Yep. Would
Ready
you
to
say?
roll. You?
Yeah. I'm definitely excited. Maybe a little stressed too. I was gonna ask you, how are you feeling? Last year, a little bit different feeling than this year, right? How are you feeling?
Oh yeah, 100% better. No pressure about them you know, not taking Shane Wright and making me look foolish. So yeah, it's the stress level compared to last year is at zero.
Oh, that's good. Before we get into anything, just want to mention that the Recruits Draft Guide is on a special offer right now at $14.99 on recruits.ca. So make sure to get that before it's too late. So now, before we get into the draft, there's two things I want to address. Obviously, Dubois, I know you don't want to talk about him, but the Frenchman who's been connected to the Habs for so long, since his draft year, I think. What are your thoughts on all that saga hopefully being over? Maybe request a trade out of LA. You never know with him, but what are
Stop
your
it.
thoughts?
Yeah. No, oh boy, here we go. I guess I can I've had the word Dubois muted on Twitter for the past year. Uh, Maybe I'll wait another month because, I'm still being asked about it. So, but closure's coming pretty soon, I'm hoping, on this whole, you know, hopefully for the next 8 years or 7.5 years. And then, you know, should they pick up Dubois, in his wheelchair, in 7.5 years? Yeah. Um, no, I'm just glad that it's over with and that you know he's apparently going to spend more than 3 years with the same organization now and be happy, in the LA Sun and just like Dino won't have the pressure of playing in Montreal and all that, which I don't know that would have been ideal for him, to be honest with you. So it might be the best thing for him personally, you know, as much as we all thought, well, because his agent said that, he'd love to be in Montreal, that, that's the only place he wanted to be. But that was just agent talk, right from the start that, uh, I mean, you have to take it in context too. I'm sure he was asked, it was by a Montreal, a Quebec-based reporter, would he like to play in Montreal? And Brisson wasn't gonna say no. He'd hate to play in Montreal. So I always thought that was a little blown out of proportion. So I'm just glad that it's over. And judging by the return that Winnipeg got for him, it would have been a pretty hefty price to have to pay to get him. So I think the Canadiens were wise to pass on trying to better that offer and go forward with the young core that they have in place.
Next, obviously, yesterday was a hectic day. We got Newhook for late first, and an early second. To some, that may seem a little bit as an overpay. What do you think on him?
Well, I mean, as a draft guy, I was initially a little bit disappointed, even though I like Newhook's potential, but it just, having three picks in the top 37 is always exciting, right? And just from that, the scouts standpoint, I was a little disappointed that there'll be less intrigue, you know. Uh, there'll be no pick at the end of the first round like Logan Mailloux that, oh, that's not going to happen now, I guess. Uh, but I mean, funny, like you see Colorado turn around and use one of those picks today to pick up Ross Colton. And people say, oh, how could you? Well, Ross Colton's a useful NHL player that's going to play for you and maybe help you at playoff time. And to be expecting any more than that with the 37th pick in the draft is unrealistic. Like you don't typically you get your top 6 forwards in the first round.
Mhm.
You're lucky at 37 if you get a guy that plays, and if he does, it's typically going to be on one of your bottom two lines. So, yeah, sure, wouldn't have minded for them to have those picks, obviously, but they got a top 16 pick who's 22 years old that has top six upside. Like you know, he he came from the BCHL, so there was quite a leap there. And then he only played 46 games, I believe it was, in college. So he's still developing. Yeah, like I saw a lot of comments saying, well, what's his upside because he only scored 30 points in the NHL. Well, yeah, 21, 22 years of age, and coming from the BCHL and a little uh, college experience, he's still growing as a player, and in Colorado, he didn't, you know, great depth. He wasn't going to replace uh, Rantanen on a line or anything like that. So, I mean, the fact that he didn't play a top six role was less to do about him not deserving and more to do with just there not being a place yet for him in the top
Mhm.
six in Colorado. So when they turned around and they got Johansson, uh, you know, um, they're they're kind of following the Tampa blueprint from a couple of years ago, I think, and trying to win now again, and Newhook, perhaps Sakic thought, well, he's maybe 2 or 3 years away from being at his prime, and we want to win now with Johansson and, obviously with Colton now. And who knows, maybe they turn around and trade the other, uh, the 31st pick for another piece
Mhm.
to try to win now. So I think it was less them giving up on Newhook and more case of them trying to win now. So I'm excited about Newhook. He he's certainly going to play in Montreal's top nine this year, and he's going to get to play with, like, I think Evan Rodriguez was his main line mate last year, and I think he's not a bad player, but I think with Montreal he's going to get a little more offensive opportunity and probably especially on the power play and stuff. So um, I think you're going to see him make a jump in his point totals just like Doc did last year. And, hopefully he can hit 40, 50 points and just keep it going in increments over the next couple of years till he's a bona fide top six player. So don't know that Montreal was going to get a future top six player with either the 31st or 37th pick. So the longer I've had to digest not having those two picks, the less discouraged I am about the fact that the draft's not going to be quite as intriguing as originally thought.
Well, yeah, you mentioned the draft, and that is tonight, and we'll get into that right now. So when you look at obviously your top 10, top 8, whatever, and others, there seems to be a correlation between the top 8, which is Bedard, Fantilli, Dvorsky, Leonard, Mitchkov, Reinbacher, Carlson, and Smith. Would you agree with that there's a top 8 in this draft?
Yeah, I mean, at this point there is, and I think, but certainly, past history has told us that the top eight picks won't be the top eight players in the
Mhm.
draft 5 years from now. But certainly now going into the draft, I think that there are eight players that those eight are a good bet to go in the top 10 for sure. And perhaps they might even be the top eight picks. Obviously, my list's a little different than most in having Dvorsky and
Yeah.
Leonard ahead of Smith and Carlson. But other than that, I think most lists, especially Bob McKenzie's, have the same top 8.
Mhm.
Reinbacher is a little lower on some lists, I think, but I think NHL teams, for the most part, have him slotted as a top 10 guy. So, but Benson and Perreault are a couple of guys that you might see slip into the top 8. You can never predict how the draft's going to go. So, and Matthew Wood's another, I think some teams are higher on Colby Barlow than some others, and maybe he goes top 10 as well. Daniel Boots, a bit of a wild card, and Simashev. Detroit's surprised teams before,
Mhm.
and if they stay put at 9, it's tough to predict where Yzerman goes. He might take a Boot, he might take Simashev, he might, very unpredictable with the Detroit. That they surprised everyone with Seider, I think, going 6 a few years back, even though I wasn't overly surprised because I had a mate, but a lot of lists typically had him mid teens, so that one kind of shocked some people. But certainly today, if you look back at it, that was a hell of a pick at 6.
Yeah, so you mentioned having Dvorsky over Carlson, and everybody knows you absolutely adore Dvorsky. So just tell us why you have Dvorsky over Carlson, and what are their flaws and
Mm.
strengths?
Yeah, you've asked me this question before, and so I should
Absolutely.
have it down pat right by now. Uh, just his all around game. I think uh he's can't miss. I think his floor is second line center, and there's no other other than Fantilli and perhaps Bedard. I don't see any other players with a floor of second line center. Um, I don't know that Smith's going to be a center. I don't know that Carlson's going to be a center. Uh, I just think he's going to help you win at playoff time, especially. He's a lot grittier than Carlson, more competitive, better all around than both Carlson and Smith. Got a great shot, very smart. Um, his attention to detail on the defensive end is just like NHL coach is going to love him, and he's going to be comfortable playing him against other teams' top 2 lines.
Mhm.
Um, I see shades of Bergeron, Ryan O'Reilly, guys that aren't 80-point scorers every year or any year maybe, but certainly thought of as two of the top 10 best centers in the league, or at least in their primes they were. And because of just how many different things, the intangibles and everything that they bring to the ice surface. And I see Dvorsky as being that type of player.
And now we'll head over more to the Habs pick. They have the 5th overall pick, and there's been a lot of drama in the past few days if they're going to trade it or not. And Frank Saravalli mentioned that they have 5 offers on the table, whether they're moving up or whether they're moving up or down, we don't know. But what would you do in this case? Would you want to stay pat at 5? Would you want to maybe perhaps move up to 4 or 3, or you want to go back to maybe 7 or 8 with Philly and Washington?
Yeah. Well, I don't see the teams at 3 and 4 moving back, but and I don't doesn't make sense, I don't think, for the Canadiens to move up to 3 or 4, because if I'm reading the tea leaves right, I think they covet Leonard and Reinbacher,
Mhm.
and I don't see either of them being targets in the top 4. So why would you move up, right? I mean, I could be wrong with that, but that's my feeling, and my sense, what I would certainly be pondering and considering would be moving back to 8 or 9, because as we say, there is a top 8 typically, I think, and they'll have a better idea after the top 4 if things go as expected and Smith and Carlson go 3-4 and Fantilli 2. Then you know that at least one of Reinbacher and Dvorsky or Leonard's there at 8. And I mean, I think any one of those three would be just fantastic pick at 8 overall, especially if you can pick up other assets.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the fact that they traded away the 31st and 37th pick almost heightens my, if you're trying to predict what perhaps they're looking at, maybe that trade was made in mind with that they're going to pick up another either first rounder or 2 more in the top 40, or at least 1 more in the top 40 to kind of make up for those 2 picks that they lost. I think Hughes, so far at least, he's not a guy that just makes one deal and he's a bit of a chess player. He has multiple ideas, plans, and certainly it would not shock me if they're planning on moving back, and that's one of the reasons why they were willing to give up the 31st and 37th pick to get Newhook, turn around and still have another top 40 pick.
Mm-hmm.
Pick at 8, or if Washington wants to move up to 5 for Mitchkov, and get a player that you want anyways at 8, recoup 1 or more of those top 40 picks that you gave away for Newhook, and have Newhook too. That I think would be a win. So I don't know if they're considering that strategy, but certainly I would be. I think it'd be great if they did that, and I'm hoping that that's something that the team is pondering.
You mentioned all of that, and then there's been rumors Philly wants to move up to 5, and they have the 22nd pick. So all that theory kind of makes sense. So that would be something cool to see, getting the 22nd and the 7th. But I guess we'll have to wait till tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern. There was thoughts. Jeff Merrick on the 32 Thoughts podcast mentioned that Anaheim, he got a text from someone closely connected to the NHL saying Anaheim were leaning towards Mitchkov at 2 and leaving Fantilli on the table to go potentially 3. And then you have Columbus saying, or thoughts, that they're going to go with Smith. They really like Smith over Carlson. So all that, what do you think first off of the Mitchkov? And if Fantilli drops, do you want to see the Canadiens potentially move up to 3 or 4 to select him if he's there?
Yeah, well, teams don't typically move down from the top 2 or 3. They really don't. Like, the last time a team moved from 2 outside of the top 4 was 30 years ago. And I think it's been at least 10 or 15 years that somebody moved at all in the top 5, up or down. It's very rare. Maybe Anaheim, I mean, Mitchkov might be the second most skilled player in this draft, so it wouldn't be a complete shock, I guess, if Anaheim took him at 2. They have some other pieces that maybe, fit with having Mitchkov in there as well, but certainly I see a 1-2 punch of Fantilli and McTavish being perfect at playoff recipe, down the road, where I think that they just, you've got Tkachuk and Bennett in Florida, Eichel, Stone, like those 2 key pieces up front that help you win. And I think McTavish and Fantilli are going to be playoff warriors, the 2 of them, and to have them on the same team just makes so much sense to me. So I would, at the end of the day, I would be surprised if they passed on Fantilli. Certainly, the large majority of NHL teams have Fantilli too.
Mm-hmm.
And trust me, if Mitchkov gets picked by Anaheim, Columbus won't be taking Smith. They would run up to the podium to take Fantilli. He's exactly what they want. They've got line A, Goudreau, Marchenko, Kent Johnson as their top four wingers, and none of those guys are defensive stalwarts. They are offense first type players. Perfect fit. Well, if they don't take Dvorsky, who I think should be their pick if Fantilli's gone, the absolute perfect guy to add to their top six would be Fantilli. So I have no doubt whatsoever. The rumors that they're gaga over Smith are just rumors. I think. I think they may take him at 3, but to say that that's absolutely the guy that they take at 3 if Fantilli was there, there's no way. They wouldn't move back and let Montreal take Fantilli at 3. They would take Fantilli instantly. So I don't think there's any scenario where Montreal unfortunately ends up with that fellow Italian there. Sorry.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think as Habs fans, you'd love to get a guy like Fantilli, but he's not going to drop at 5. Just the hard truth. We touched on Mitchkov a bit. It was announced today he only met with the Canadiens and Philly to have some interviews with those teams. So with that said, does that spice it up for the Canadiens? Does that show any of their cards at all, or do you think it's just they're just doing their due diligence?
Montreal's thrown up 100 smoke screens. It's just part of the smoke screen process. They so far I've heard moving up to 2 to get Fantilli, moving up to 3 to get Smith, moving up to 4 to get Carlson, staying put and getting Reinbacher or Leonard, staying put and getting Mitchkov. I think it was even thrown out there. They're staying put and getting Daniel Boot.
I think that was just you.
I'd love that, but I'm certainly not expecting it. You'd hear lots of boos, and it wouldn't be because they're saying his name.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a bad thing.
It'd be boo, like BOO.
Yeah.
That girl that the famous shot of the Zadina lady there that
yeah.
When they took KK,
I remember that.
There'd be 1,000 of those up just what?
That'd be something.
Yeah, so they're throwing up piles of smoke screens, and if I ever need to replace the smoke screen on my fireplace, I'm calling up Bobrov and Lapointe, because those guys look to be the kings of smoke screen here this year. So I have no idea what the Canadiens are going to do. I think that they should take Leonard or Reinbacher, but they may move back, they may stay put. Don't think they'll move up. Teams just typically don't move out of the top 4. There's, why pass on a guy that there's always at least 4 prospects that you really like in the draft class, and why would you pass on one of them to pick up an extra pick? Just stay put and you take them. So I'm not sure if I really answered your question properly, but I danced around it, and that's close enough.
No, it's the Montreal market. We're just used to absolutely everything, from rumors to just pure drama with the Canadiens. It's part of the Canadiens, honestly. So with that said, draft day, extremely unpredictable. We do not know what's going to happen. We can have some bombs like Sider going 6 with Detroit, even though you kind of saw it coming. So many things can happen, and no one knows what is going to happen. So with that said, I want you to give me, one player of each, someone who you think is going to fall and someone you think is going to be kind of like a Sider, like a reach pick.
Yeah. I always have a tough time answering that question. I can't predict who's going to fall, I mean, fall according to my list or Bob McKenzie's list, or Joe Scout with fall according to what, because there is no set list, master list. Everybody, there's different lists, and I mean, I guess a Russian or two, might fall. I mean, there's 4 that are top 15 talent all day, but will they all go in the top 15? I don't think so. Gulyayev, I guess, is the most likely candidate to fall below what he should, because he's a 5'10" Russian defenseman, So he'd be a guy that I think may fall a bit. Sandy Pellica will be interesting. He may go anywhere from, I think, 12 to 30, So he's a wild card as far as I'm concerned. I have him at 30, but I don't expect him to go that low. There are certainly teams, though, that aren't, they're a little wary about taking the 5'11" defenseman after seeing, once again, the NHL playoffs where there were very few 5'11" defensemen in the play after round 1. I don't know. There might have been 1 or 2 playing still out of the 8 teams that were there. So 48 defensemen playing in the second round of the playoffs, and there was 1 that was 5'11" or 2, something crazy like that. So typically the NHL is a bit of a copycat league, and they tend to look at these things and say, well, maybe we shouldn't take the 5'11" defenseman at 15 overall, and go with a more sure bet. Colby Barlow will be interesting. I think there's a bunch of players like that. I mean, there are scouts I know that don't have them, that have them around 20. Yet, you see predictions where I saw one, today, Joey Palazzolo, St. Louis scribe or whatever, predicting that that's who they'll take at 10, and yet there are some NHL scouts who certainly don't have him top 15 anymore, and more towards the end of the teens. So perhaps Barlow's a guy that drops a little bit unexpectedly. I know teams were a little concerned with his I guess he wasn't in tip top shape at the combine, and it's your draft year, most important year of your young life up until then, and to not be in really good shape at the combine might throw up some red flags for some teams. So he might be a guy that drops, and then again he might be a guy that goes 10. So I love the intrigue of this draft, and I think that you certainly can't predict the draft order by any means.
Absolutely. And we'll end off on this question. I don't know how connected you are on the Canadian rumors on Twitter, but from what I see, it's Mitchkov or we riot. With that said, obviously you mentioned Reinbacher or Leonard for the Habs at 5. I want you to kind of sell us on both of them and tell us their ceiling and tell us what you envision them being in the NHL.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have Dvorsky 3rd overall. So, I mean, if it were up to me and he was there, I'd take him over even those 2 guys, another center or whatever, but he'll play, he can play any position on the forward unit. And, but I mean, really good on faceoffs. I think you could slot him in as Montreal's second line center down the road, him and Suzuki. Oh, I'd love that in playoff games, keep Doc on the wing, and you just, Slavkovsky, Caulfield, Doc, Dvorsky, and then plug in whoever, Newhook, wow. I think that would be a fantastic top 6 in a couple of years, and especially at playoff time. So I would add him to the, I don't know. I mean, just what I've heard, I don't know that the Canadiens are, looking at Dvorsky at 5, but We've heard rumors for every other top 8 guy and even Boot. And they're throwing up all these smoke screens. It wouldn't shock me if it's the guy that nobody expects, right? Dvorsky
Mhm.
it. So I'm not ruling that out at 5. And but Leonard and Reinbacher, well, I've explained this on a couple other podcasts recently with Reinbacher. It's just they need another right defenseman. Uh, he's going to be a top 2 right defenseman if he gets drafted by the Canadiens. 18 to 22 minutes a game. That's just such a valuable piece. Um, I think they want to find the ideal partner for Lane Hudson at some point. They hope that Lane Hudson can be top 2 left defenseman for them, and I think he would be the ideal partner for Lane Hudson down the road. They'll need a guy that's good defensively, that's rangy, that cover a lot of ice, can sit back, you know. The Serge Savard to Larry Robinson type, where he was back when Larry went on one of his soirees up the ice. That might be before your time, I'm thinking.
Think
Larry
so?
Robinson and Serge Savard, but there'll be a handful of guys watching this and girls that know who I'm talking about. and and you need a compliment. And I think Gouli and Mayu, uh, Mayu's a little offensively inclined, and Gouli, defense first, all around. That could be a perfect pairing too. So that if that's their vision, I understand that. I'm pretty sure that would be why they went that route, thinking here is the ideal partner for Lane Hudson in a couple of years. So I get it, and I don't think Reinbacher would be a poor pick at 5 at all. Um, Leonard, he's going to be a fan favorite in Montreal if he gets picked. He's they haven't really had a Claude Lemieux type winger since Claude Lemieux. Again, we're going back. You wouldn't remember Claude Lemieux. You read about him, saw
Yeah,
videos.
absolutely.
But I mean, Conn Smythe Trophy winner, you know, steps up big in the playoffs, heart and soul, leaves it out on the ice every shift, has enough skill to score 25 to 35, 40 goals. Um, I think he's a better skater than Lemieux. So, very good skater as well. Going to hit everything in sight. Um, and is just tailor made for the top 6, Montreal's top 6 down the road,
Mhm.
along with these other good pieces that they have. So I love the thought of Dvorsky, Reinbacher, or Leonard being the Habs pick. And as I say, if the draft goes as top 4 go as expected, and Washington moves up because they want to take Mitchkov, one of those 3 is there at 8. So, you can pick up the 40th pick, which Washington also has. Maybe you can even get a first rounder next year, if they really want
Mm.
Michkov that badly. That'd be a nice haul if you could get the 40th pick, their first rounder next year, and one of the 3 guys that I think is the ideal would be an ideal pick
Mhm.
for the Canadiens. So, and then also, maybe Philly, like you say, moving up to 5. I think Philly, I'd be surprised though. I think that they're going to get either Reinbacher or Leonard at 7, and to me though, or Dvorsky, and to me, all 3 of those are also would be perfect fits in Philly. So I
Mhm.
don't see them moving up to 5 unless Briere really wants Michkov, and there's been whispers of that too. So it's just there's so much guesswork involved in this draft, and it's going to be so fun to watch tonight.
Absolutely. Well, we'll end it off on that. It just like you said, it's going to be a fun time tonight, and hopefully we all get what we want. But as Habs fans, you know that that's never the case. So Grant, thank you again, and let's have a good time tonight.